Friday, it's Shabbat, and
All of a sudden,
I'm
no,
a Jew
no,
by
no,
proxy. And it's the graveyard shift, so the judges have to be alert, awake, and fair to every candidate. BizAid 079, Susan Preller. This is an award winner, previous award winner. So previous award winners get given more hell than normal people. So Susan, Mhating, welcome.
Thank you and good afternoon. It's nice being back. Previously I worked at Lifeline. Now I'm at SACOA, which is the South African Business Coalition on HIV and AIDS. And one of our programs that we implement is the BizAid program. Now BizAid stands for Biz, for business, and AIDS for AIDS, which is either HIV and AIDS, but also business aids or tools. So it's really a unique program in the sense that it combines information on business, but also on HIV and AIDS. And I'm going to run you through the details on that. BizAid was developed as a micro-business risk survival guide. And micro-businesses are deemed businesses with less than 10 employees. But in our country, these are often businesses run by one person. And typically, if you think about informal traders that have a little stall somewhere, or your township hair salon, your spaza shop, little businesses that really start up because people need to survive and people need to generate an income if they cannot find formal employment. Now, in terms of research that's been done, economic research, the following came out. Most micro-enterprises do not survive. Sorry, I'm on the wrong page. More than 90% of all businesses in the world is part of micro, small, and medium enterprises. It accounts for more than 50 to 60% of the total employment, and also 35% of the world's economic activity sits in this sector. But also the scary part is that in this sector, 1 in 5 adults are HIV positive. So one can see immediately why it was necessary to develop a tool that could come to the aid of specifically your micro-enterprise. Most micro-enterprises do not survive when HIV and AIDS hit the owner or key employees. Saying in the beginning, sometimes there is only one person, or one person with another key employee and maybe a second person. So once HIV and AIDS set in, it is really difficult for them to survive. This, of course, will cause incalculable hardship to the employees, to the employer, but also to the family members who often are dependent solely in terms of the income generated by this micro-enterprise. But more so also the community, because some of these little businesses based in a community often feed the community in terms of a service delivery. And if that business dies or is not able to survive after the owner becomes ill, then the service in the community also falls down. The threat posed by HIV and AIDS and the economic survival in this sector in Africa is all too grave. Now, the objectives of this program, and one of the objectives of SACOA as well, is to mitigate the impact of HIV and AIDS on sustained profitability and economic growth for micro-enterprises. It reaches out to at-risk communities with accurate information, practical, sustainable business survival tools. It also assists micro-enterprises to succeed. And the program has 3 basic risk areas that it addresses: the business risk, the legal risk, and the health risk component. And this also assists in terms of poverty alleviation once these businesses become successful. Now, this program has proven itself since it started in terms of being the kind of program that really has sustainability. Why do we say that it's sustainable? BizAids tries to empower local trainers. We believe that it's important for trainers that know micro enterprises in their area, that come from the same area, that know the culture, that know the language in the area, so that they could really empower these businesses. But also, often the trainers that we use are little micro enterprising training organizations themselves. So not only the micro enterprise that they teach, but also themselves as a little business gets empowered. The program builds skills and capacity for local communities. So those skills remain because it's implemented within the community. It's an extremely cost-effective program. The program, all taken into account, the training venue, facilitation fees, everything up to the certificate, costs in the region of about 350 Rand per person. And one other thing as well is because of the cost effectivity, it's very well funded. We've received funding for this program since it started in 2002. It also enhances the development of networks and partnerships on a variety of levels. Local trainers liaise with municipalities, with local organizations, with CEDAs, with business chambers, and they network, and they also link the businesses that they train with these structures. The successes. I've given you just a few here. I think you have more of them in the proposal that we submitted. But if we look at the success factors that come out, and we assess how do people implement the skills, we found that 87% of the micro enterprises, and throughout the world where we are, mostly in Africa, but also in one or two other places, 35,000 micro enterprises have been trained since 2000. And 87% of those are actually implementing the skills that they were taught through the training. In some of the areas where, depending on the country and the HIV and AIDS policy, we have found that for every one person that was trained, 3 people were actually accessing VCT. In our own country, we found over the last 2 years that basically we had a prevalence rate of about, not a prevalence rate, uptake of VCT rate of up to 75% of the training. This program contributes to the achievements of the goals of our own NSP, but also the goals of PEPFAR. SAPCOA itself in South Africa have already trained 6,000 micro enterprises. The outcomes. 90% distributed HIV and AIDS info to employees and trained staff. 86% implemented succession planning and skills transfer. 87% started managing business records. 86% identified ways to reduce cost. And 66% implemented a long-term plan for transition. The impact really falls out into 2. It provides participants with tools and the confidence to transfer the knowledge and skills acquired to others in the workplace, family and community. And it's hugely effective in terms of risk management. Then I've put something in for you on the uniqueness of the program. It's the only training course developed to address HIV and AIDS and business skills simultaneously. It's simple in delivery, but unique in design. It's practical, easy to implement, and transferable. It's designed for both literate and non-literate audiences. 75% of participants are females who, of course, are most vulnerable to HIV and AIDS. It's also geared towards participants' essential business needs and interests. And there's no need for costly equipment or fancy venues. You can do it in a boardroom, you can do it under a tree, you can do it in a shack. So it's implementable anywhere. Then just to end, a few quotes from participants. From today, I will start talking openly to my husband about the condom and teach him how to use them effectively, one woman said after training. After training, wonders are happening in my business. I received a contract to sew school uniforms and the first check. I learned how HIV and AIDS can affect my business and that I need to think ahead and be prepared. I attended a BizAIDS workshop, and in less than 3 months, my business improved tremendously and started growing in great leaps. And there, in Zambia, training under the tree to end off with. Thank you.
And I'm always very complimentary to everyone. It's a great effort to be there. Something that is just going through my mind. If you go to the last PowerPoint before this. From today, I will start openly. I will start talking openly to my husband about condoms, teach him how to use them effectively. You know, from an analytic point of view, there's a double-barrel message there. Either you giving the husband a free license to do what he should do or what he shouldn't do, or vice versa. Can you explain to me what that means?
Okay. Part of the BizAIDS training in the HIV component is also to teach participants how to use condoms effectively. And we encourage them not to keep the info for themselves, but to take it home to the family, to take it home to their business and the wider community. And often when we train people, women are saying, I cannot negotiate condom use with my husband. I'm too scared. I don't know what he's going to say. But in terms of the empowerment in the training, women are coming up afterwards and say, I can now go and talk to him about it and also show him how to use this in our relationship.
Hillary?
Thank you. I'm a little bit confused, and my confusion is that your stats that you quote, both in here, well, it applies to here, but certainly there, some of them are international, some of them are sub-Saharan, some of them are local, and I don't know how to distinguish, which leads me then to, in your application, you've got a table, I think of outcomes, feedback or whatever. The business owner has established HIV and AIDS policies for the workplace, 62%. I find that very disappointing.
That's the policy.
Given the broad mission of your organization.
That's right. Okay, I thought in terms of just placing it in the broader picture for you here, to also show what BizAIDS achieved in other countries, but bringing it back to SAPCOA. And in SAPCOA, we've trained 6,000 people. Out of our participants, we've included the stats for you in the actual proposal. Now, the implementation of policy is a fairly difficult concept for people of lower literacy levels. It is part of the program, and often they score higher and give higher feedback on going to talk about condoms or distributing information in the workplace, but setting up the actual policy is quite a complicated one, and therefore that is a lower level. But we also have that they would, sorry, you look confused still.
Well, everybody understands rules,
Yeah.
no matter what level they're operating on, and that's what policy is.
Yes. But also, don't forget that often it's one person. So out of 100 people that we train, maybe 50% of those are one-man businesses. So they often don't draft a policy for themselves. It's only the businesses that have 2 or 3 employees that would also looking at policy delivery. So the AIDS information stats are over 80%, but the actually policy part is about 60%.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other?
There was a remark in one of the documents about are you working only in English? Question 1. And if so, what about those who would find English difficult to understand and cope with?
One of my opening remarks was that we use local trainers. The materials of BizAIDS are in English, It's very simplistic, it's very practical in terms of exercises. But we like to use local trainers, so most of the tuition and skills transfer happens in the local language, and the participants can also speak freely in their own language. So during the training, they would be helped if they needed to have the cash flow statement or the basic rule draft translated in the language. We have translated the manual for KZN right in the beginning into Zulu, but we actually found that people started asking rather have it in one language into English.
You know, when I was the Human Rights Commissioner, the first thing we did was to print the Constitution in Xhosa, and nobody took it. Nobody wanted it. Thank you, Susan. Keep well and keep up the good work and for your project.